Hey everybody, I'm Dr. Boyce Watkins from Your Black World, and I wanted to take a second to talk about something that I just read in the media about McGraw-Hill and this geography textbook that they released, where they were the title of the textbook is Patterns of Immigration, and the section of the geography textbook is called Patterns of Immigration. And in the textbook, they wrote that the Atlantic slave trade between the 1500s and 1800s brought millions of workers from Africa to the southern United States to work on agricultural plantations. And so basically, in this textbook, they were describing the slave trade, the Middle Passage, as simple immigration, and defining slaves to be migrant workers as opposed to what we actually were, which was people who were forced into servitude. Um, you know, I was one of the people who was also stunned when I saw this. I saw this video and we put it out instantly and pushed it around. I mean, a couple 100,000 of our people read it. I know, and I know millions of people read it everywhere. And it outraged me, as it should outrage, I think, anybody who knows anything about history. Uh, there is a huge amount of damage that's done when you talk about the way these stories are told. They say that history is told by the victor, and white Americans are kind of the victors in a lot of this. I mean, we've achieved some advances, but for the most part, a lot of people would say that a lot of the world is run by white men and women, and the data pretty much says that they don't have our best interests at heart most of the time, at least not as a collective. Now, I want to give full credit to her last name is Ronnie Dean Burren, who's a doctoral student who actually took the time to do the Facebook post that drew attention to the textbook. I think that really shows you kind of what happens when you have educated and empowered black people. You see, being educated is one thing, but if you have to have the right kind of education, and then education without courage or conscientiousness doesn't mean much of anything at all, right? An education that doesn't have conscientiousness and courage might be a ticket to make some money. You can go into the economic system and get a little bit of money for you and your family and all that stuff, but it doesn't do much for the world. So what I see with this woman, and who was dealing with, talking to her 15-year-old son about this, is I see a true asset to the black community. I see a not a PhD, but a future PhD. And that basically, to me, means that she understands that she has a critical role to help uplift our community, bring awareness to important issues, to critically think and challenge those things that she sees that just aren't fair, that are not reflective of justice. So, in other words, bottom line, that's a strong black woman right there. I say to brothers, those are the types of women that you want to spend your time with. Now, what I will say is another thing that's interesting about this. This is a subtler point that I want you to keep in mind. Here's the deal. Um, we have to really think about the dangers of letting these white folks educate our kids. Point blank. It doesn't mean that all white people are evil or the devil, or that we should just separate ourselves entirely. But it means that we have to really question this whole idea of us packing our kids up at the age of 6 and sending them away to be educated by a system that has proven that it's much better at preparing your child for prison than it is at preparing your child for college. Um, we have to realize that no nation on earth, no nation on earth relies on another nation or an invading nation to tell its own story. Um, we feel that that's okay because we've kind of fallen to this idea that we're kind of, this sort of subset of the American family, the American melting pot, but we're the ones who are the quickest to be shot by the police, the quickest to be left unemployed, the quickest to be killed in urban violence, the quickest to be left in all other kinds of despair that doesn't tend to happen to white folks as much, right? And when we've talked about these issues and we've asked for help addressing these issues from this broader American family, this family we're supposed to belong to, they pretty much say, nigga, go and mind your own business, or no, we don't care, or no, we have no accountability for any of this. Part of the reason that reparations is such an uphill battle is because there are a lot of white folks who were not taught history. They learn history from books like this that tell them that slavery was, yeah, it was kind of bad, but you know what? But things are better now. This optimistic revisionist kind of story that says, yeah, back in the old days that don't matter anymore, this is what they used to do to black people, but now you treat them really well and they have equal opportunity. And so if their communities are destroyed and they're broke and they're all going to prison, it's because they are just fucked up people. Excuse my French. That black people are just screwed up and ignorant, and they have a long line of cultural failings that lead us to have no choice but to incarcerate a large percentage of them because they don't have any sense, right? That's not a family, right? And given that that's not a family, then I don't know how we can sort of feel that we should be dependent on that family, or that we should consider ourselves to be part of that melting pot, because the indicators show that we are not. So here's my final thought on this. Letting other people tell your story is incredibly flawed. We need systematic institutions and frameworks. You can do this through the internet. Systematic frameworks through which African American people can educate African American children. It does not mean you should be scared to send your child to a white school if that's what you want to do. I'm not going to judge that. But, one of the reasons that we created platforms like Your Black Education is because I felt like, you know what, we need to pull together some of these black educators across the country and let them connect with black parents and students so we can find ways to make sure our children get the right information, that they get education that's culturally relevant, that teaches them to be stronger and more empowered black people in this society. Because what happens is integration teaches our children to kind of let their guard down. It teaches them to be weak. It teaches them to submit and subjugate themselves to this economic system that's designed for their oppression. So what they're kind of doing is they're training you to be a passive victim while they've been a very aggressive perpetrator. They're teaching you not to declare war on anybody else, but you're not even aware that war has been declared on you, so that when you end up in prison, when you end up shot by the police, when you end up unemployed and marginalized and hooked on drugs and dealing with all this craziness that happens in our communities, a lot of it connected to white supremacy. Even the drugs came from the CIA. We know this whole story. So when all these things happen to you, because you've never been geared and prepared for war, geared and prepared to fight back, prepared to critically analyze, you're just gonna lay back and take it, right? Just like in rape, sexual assault, right? The rapist wants you to just be passive and take it, right? So what would a rapist do? They might drug you up so that you'll lay there and you won't fight back. Well, from an early age, our children are drugged up with false and misleading education, false and low expectations, a low self perception, and an illusion, and what they call the illusion of inclusion. I mean, that is very, very real. The illusion that you've been included. So anything that goes wrong in your life, it's all your fault. And here's one more quick final thought on this is, um, it's interesting that we care very deeply about what they will write about us in their history books, because we depend on those books to get our education. But you never really hear white people collectively complaining about what we write about them in our books. And the reason they don't complain is because when it comes to our books, they just don't read them. They just don't read them. So why are we reading their books and they're not reading ours? That's the question I think we got to ask ourselves. So all I want to say, I'm Dr. Boyce Watkins from Your Black World. Please take care. God bless. I'm gone. Peace.